Howdy, folks, and welcome to Moose Podcast 176. Hey, thank you ever so much for taking time to drop by and listen. I'm grateful. Yes, I have thawed out. Some of you saw that I was up in incredible Saxim Bog, and one morning it was minus 31 degrees. Even so, the photography was blazing hot. Great place. So thanks for reaching out, and I want to thank some of you guys sent some really great emails this past week. Not that there was any questions for the podcast, but you had some real fun comments from last week's podcast, and I appreciate that banter and, of course, the communication. I also want to thank my good friends at Bedford Camera, bedfords.com, for sponsoring the Moose Podcast. It means a lot that they put their time and effort behind the Moose Podcast, and of course, all of us photographers. So remember, when you head there, make sure you ask for that special discount code being Moose, M-O-O-S-E. You enter it in the box that you check out on the website. Most of you don't realize that anything over $99 is free next day shipping, and of course, a lot of states no sales tax. And make sure you check out their March PhotoCon event that's coming up. It's a big event. It's a big gathering of lots of information, inspiration, and of course, just good old camaraderie. So make sure you check out Bedford Camera's PhotoCon, a little less than a month away. Let's get right into today's podcast. Muscle memory. Now, way back when, if you think about it, back in the second and third grade, you probably had the great exhilaration, fun, and thrill of learning your multiplication tables. It was pretty simple, right? They kind of showed us, why 3 times 3 equals 9. 3 little bundles of 3 add them up equals 9. And they showed us how we could do multiplication to actually speed up the math process, get further faster. But the multiplication tables, even though they taught us the basics and how it works, we had to memorize it. I mean, I remember it sitting on the wall. I remember going up and doing the fun exercises in front and trying to, be the fastest gun multiplier with the answer, all that kind of stuff. But it still was a downright chore to learn the multiplication tables to become proficient at math. Of course, for some folks, this is the days before calculators and other things. We actually had pencil and paper and did math. Anyway, what has that got to do with muscle memory and photography? Well, one thing I would like to try to encourage you to think about and to do is take exposure and kind of make it a muscle memory exercise that you see and learn to get the photograph. Now, I was watching a number of photographers lately, and rather than seeing the light falling on the scene and knowing how they should expose for it, B, trusting their camera more, it was C, constantly looking at that monitor on the back of the camera, which is not a faithful, accurate device for, determining exposure, when exposure is such a very important, delicate, fine art of photography, that it just brought me back to when I started out in photography, and my instructor said, hey, you got to have this knowledge in your head, not relying on back then a meter, okay, but actually looking at that light and using your eyes, your heart, and the way you want to tell a story to determine how you want to take that photograph. And it was something that, like the multiplication table, you have to memorize. Now, light is continually changing, okay? Continually changing. It's not like if you went to the same spot that I shot, and I shot there with this, that, and the other setting, that if you use this, that, and the other setting, you're going to get the same photograph. Doesn't work that way. But light, as far as, hard light, soft light, contrasty light, saturated light, all these different kind of lights. They're global. And if you start to take the time to actually memorize some of this stuff, then you'd find that, one, you probably wouldn't look at your LCD so much, and you wouldn't miss that photograph of that really cute moment with that critter, because while everybody else is clicking, you were looking at your LCD and you missed the picture, which I saw happen twice. And it's like, wow, that's a great moment. You're not going to get that chance for that boreal owl again. You might not want to have, been screwing around with the LCD. But if you take time to learn exposure, make it a muscle memory, make it something that is ingrained, like the multiplication table, your photography will grow, and it'll grow at a rate that might astound you. In fact, you might find your confidence grows with it. And with that, as we all know, as we become more confident in ourselves as we move forward creatively, we tend to want to take on new, bigger, grander creative topics, challenges, ideas. Now, how can you begin to form a muscle memory? Turn exposure into like a multiplication table to learn it? Well, there's a couple things that you can start off with right off the bat. And we're going to talk about something that's technical, but I'm not going to talk about it in a technical manner. And I need to preface this by saying, remember that exposure for me equals emotion. So, for example, got an owl sitting on a tree, okay? And let's say it's, an hour after sunrise. Now, owls are typically what? People think of them as nocturnal. So, if you want to tell a story, you could tell a story that, one, it's nighttime, two, it's an hour before sunrise, or three, the sun has come up, and you could do it right now, an hour after sunrise, by simply changing your exposure. You could underexpose a couple stops. It's going to make it look really dark, and people are going to look at that owl and go, oh, it's nighttime, because that's how we associate light with so many things. You can underexpose maybe just a stop or two and say, oh, it's twilight. Or you could expose at zero exposure compensation to say, hey, it's daytime, and it was a cool owl to have out at daytime. By simply changing your exposure, you can change the way you change that story and tell it to people, okay? So what story, what emotion do you want? That's the number one thing that, well, you kind of want to get into your muscle memory. Now, how do you start, A, looking at that light, and B, recognize what it's doing, so C, you can expose for emotion? Well, I had this same issue long ago, back in the days of film. And the thing with film was you took the shot, you had to wait till it came back from the lab to see if you got it or not. There wasn't no instant feedback. And if you missed it, you were toast. Even today with digital, that one moment that's happening, that critter that's doing that very unique thing, it's going to do it once and boom, it's done. If you don't get it, you don't have it. Some people say, well, I can fix it in post. And of course, that is true and that is valid. But with that, problem is you're not moving your photography forward. Actually, you're setting it back. I want you to move it forward. So way back in the days of film, what I did was I started for myself the teddy bear exercise. And I originally started to do that to develop the muscle memory. So when I look at a scene, I know exactly how I'm going to take that picture for exposure. It's no guesswork. I know it instantly. And I know it well enough, not only for the exposure, but also for the white balance. And the only way that happens is this constant memorizing the multiplication table, but making it for light. So the teddy bear exercise, links here. It's real simple. You're going to get your favorite stuffed animals, a black, a white, and a mid-tone. You're going to put them together, and you're going to photograph them in different scenarios. And I'm going to encourage you to do it more than just the exercise I have laid out. but take them with you different places, everything from elevation to open meadow to downtown, city. It might look a little weird in the city, but, and then change also the focal lengths. Change how long, how wide, how physically close you are to the teddy bears, how far away or close the background is. And you have the same constant, you look at it. And the key here is to photograph them. And photograph them, in this case, even though I don't do it in my normal shooting, you could just turn on the camera bracketing and let the bracketing just do it for you. And then you come back and you look at the images on your computer and you start looking at everything from how the story changes to how the information comes across to the color changes. You start making notes about that. You make mental notes. You're flexing that muscle memory, okay? That muscle being your brain and that heart, you're going to flex those muscles and retain the memories of what you like in exposure for telling your story. Now, there is absolutely no doubt that this probably sounds like one of the goofiest things you've heard Moose say, and I've said a lot of goofy things, haven't I? I mean, and there's still more to come. I'm not done. Maybe for this podcast, but not entirely. But when I go out shooting with folks, they're sitting there and they're asking these questions, how are you exposing? And not that I'm 100% dead on every time, but boy, it's not very often that I don't have it nailed right off the bat. And that is because it's a continual thing. So not only did I do the teddy bear exercise to get my base memory, muscle memory going, but then I look at my images every night. I look at them every night. And why do I do that? Because that reinforces what I've done right and what I've done wrong, how I can improve to keep that muscle memory not only flexing, but still growing. Because the multiplication table, if you really wanted to, you could go, past single digits, 9 times 9. You could go up to, 263 times 44 and start, you could build their muscle memory to do that kind of a multiplication in your head. I'm going to use that space, though, for looking at and understanding light. That thing that, makes everything happen photographically. Now, the one thing that you're wondering why I'm not talking about when it comes to exposure is any kind of artificial way of looking at it, say like a histogram or other means in which to look at the value of that light. And while those are all valid tools and people love using them, got to understand that couple things. One, photo buyers and photo editors, they don't go there. They don't, they're looking at the impact of that photograph. They're going to say, how does it reach out from that page and grab my heartstrings? That's really important. That's how light works for them. And the public, the public, there's no histogram on your smartphone unless you go and get an app for it. Otherwise, it just works, right? So that's kind of the whole thing with light. And when you're doing it correctly, you've got that muscle memory working for you rather than against you, then the light is telling your story. Because keep in mind that as you grow and you don't actually get a handle on exposure and understand what it's doing for your photography to tell a story, your confidence doesn't grow. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You'll spend more time questioning yourself as a photographer and questioning where you're standing and what your lens is and how you're arranging elements. It's amazing that this very important building block, which comes from that muscle memory, will give you the confidence to sit out there and take better photographs knowing you've nailed the exposure for the story you want to tell. And that's really the important part of this whole thing. So work on that muscle memory. And it's going to suck just like learning the multiplication table and memorizing it. But once you're done, and once you keep building on it, you'll say, phew, that was some of the best exercise I've ever done. Well, I hope you're having a great week coming up. I hope you have lots planned and lots of great shooting going on. Winter seems to be really sporadic. On the west, it's We got birds here that are doing the birds and the bee things, and it's February. So things are really goofed up in my neck of the woods. And that means there's not much snow, if any, that's starting to fade fast. So it means spring's coming up, other things to plan for. And in the process, remember that every time you go click, make it your story.